Paulding County, hello, welcome to the Chairman's Corner. So glad that we could give you some information today, and we're honored to have Miss Deidre Holden here, who is the Director of Elections, and wow, what a job you have got. We want to educate our citizens and answer some of the questions that we think if they were here on the set with us that they would ask. But first of all, I'd like to know a little bit about your background, Deidre, and how you came into being the director of one of the most important departments that we have here in Paulding County.
Well, in 2004, I was invited to take over the registrar's office due to Miss Bonnie Williams. She was diagnosed with cancer, and she had to be out for a little while and take treatments. And she went to the then sitting chairman, which was Jerry Sharon, and she asked him if I could run her department. So he graciously said yes, and I went into the 2004 presidential election and fell in love with it. I had helped Miss Bonnie in elections for years after I would get off work, and I started doing it, and it took my heart, and I loved it. I fell in love with the voters, the people, and I've been doing it ever since. Judge Deborah Anderson was the election superintendent at the time, and she was wanting to get out of the elections business because of all the duties that the state had put on the probate judges, and she felt that I was the gal to take it and run with it. And on July 1st of 2007, I became the first election supervisor for Paulding County, and we combined boards, and here we are.
Wow, that's a good story also, and the leaders that have influenced you and recommended you are outstanding folks that have given a lot to our county. You're one of the few departments that has your own board, and I think the citizens would like to know about that board and what their mission is.
Okay, our board is made up of 5 individuals. 3 of those individuals are appointed by the Board of Commissioners. 1 has to be a Republican, 1 has to be a Democrat, and then the chairman's also, you all appoint the chairman of our board, which is Miss Peggy Wills. And then we have an appointment by the constitutional officers, and then we have an appointment by the legislative delegation. Our board was established by the General Assembly, and our board serves as somewhat of a working board. We meet monthly, and our board, they're there for any challenges to electors, to elected officials, to candidates. They're the ones who have to vote to make any kind of changes that involves the elections department.
Well, you also have a staff, and it's probably grown over the years, but tell us a little bit about your staff.
When I first started doing elections, it was myself and 1 other full-time person. We have grown now, it's myself and 3 other full-time people, and then we have 2 permanent part-times. And then during elections, we pull in our poll workers to help us get through those times that we're the busiest.
So they're your volunteers?
They don't volunteer, they get paid, but they do come in and help us, because if it wasn't for that, we couldn't do it. Normally during early voting, we have about 20 extra people that comes in to help us with that process.
It's a good number. In a typical election, how many times and for what reasons, or in a typical election cycle, a year, how many elections would we have?
If it's a typical election, and when I say typical, I mean there's not a lot of opposition in the offices, we would have a primary election and a general election. But when there is a lot of candidates on the ballots, we most of the time will have 3 to 4 elections that year. If it's a presidential preference primary, we would have 5 to 6 elections in 1 year.
Gracious.
Since 2004, when I started doing elections, we have had elections every year. There's never been a year we have not conducted an election.
And you also help the cities out. And, you know, we, as a county, want to merge and mesh with our cities and help them out. Speak on that for a minute.
We conduct the elections for the City of Dallas and the City of Hiram. We contract with them. We go into their cities. We use our voting equipment. We do everything for them. The only thing that we do not do is their qualifying. But everything else we do. We conduct their elections, we tabulate their votes, and we do their election results.
Well, we're a big county, 310 square miles, and now a population of almost 160,000.
Yes.
And you provide for those citizens over that entire area voting locations. I think the citizens would be interested in how many you have, about the early voting and then the final voting.
Yes. Many years ago, we had 28 precincts. That's the most that I've ever known for the county to have. And with the way that our citizens and voters have taken to the early voting, we have been fortunate enough to be able to reduce our precincts down to 12 because over half of our voters vote early. But we have 12 polling locations. We have 4 early voting locations. And we just kind of spread those out throughout the county, especially the early voting, to be more convenient for our citizens to be able to vote. And we also extend those hours.
In my family, we have a mixture of Republicans and Democrats. And I happen to be a registered Republican, but many of my loved ones registered Democrat. And I think it's interesting how you can vote or your selected party, but then later on you might have the option to vote in another party. Or can you explain that? I may not have it correct.
Georgia is a non-declaring state, so we don't register as a Republican or a Democrat. When someone comes in to vote in a primary election, we offer them a ballot style. So you may have voted Republican your entire life, but if you decide you want to vote as a Democrat, you can vote as a Democrat. And then in November, of course, it's a general ballot. Everyone gets the same ballot.
Let's see. Do you ever have to go into a recount after the elections?
We have done one recount that we ordered as a county because it was so close, and it was an election. It was actually House District 19, and we used that as one of those teachable moments. And we actually had a state investigator come in. We had some employees from the elections division from the state come in. Of course, the candidates were there, and we actually filmed that process because we wanted people to realize, you know, a recount is very serious. Most of the time, 99.9% of the time, the vote is not going to change. But we want people to have confidence in the numbers that we give them because when you're a candidate, every vote counts. And we want people to see that with a recount, you know, we want to make sure that we've done our job to the best of our ability. And recounts are not fun, but they're a necessity when you have such a close election. So we used that as a teachable moment and got a lot of good response from that, but the results didn't change.
Well, just curious, did you make that call or the whole board, or did you get?
I just felt that in elections, sometimes you get so much bad PR because there's such a distrust when it comes to the voting equipment, and you know, people think their vote doesn't count. That's one thing that I can assure you of. Every vote in Paulding County counts, from the paper ballots to the early votes to the election day votes and provisional that are eligible. But with a recount, you just want to make sure that people know we do care. We want to make sure that there has been no mistakes made, and those results never change.
Well, Deidre, you have given a lot of edification here in this short time period. You have such a huge job. Just kudos to you and your staff and your board, and hopefully I'll get to roam around in an election upcoming and thank the volunteers.
Yes.
Do you have any other not questions, that citizens may question you, or any other instructions that you might give? And hopefully everybody votes, right? 100%.
I would love a 100% turnout. The most important thing that I could say to the voters is know where your polling location is. If you don't know where your polling location is and you don't go to the correct polling location, you're going to have to vote a provisional ballot. But you know, you're not going to leave there without voting, but it is so important to know where your polling location is. Every voter should have received a precinct card, and just vote. That's the most important thing. There's a lot of people that made sacrifices for us to be able to vote, and you know, we don't ever need to take that for granted. We need to get out and vote.
Well, that's a good way to end. That's a big amen. We all need to take that responsibility and be a part of our governing body. So
Yes.
thank you for being here.
Thank
It's been
you
very
so
edifying.
much. Thank you. Thank you.